Hi, are we all ready for the last session of the day? Woo! I think after a good cup of coffee and chai, we are like again active and all ready for the last session. Great. Now, the last session talks about women on the move towards equitable transport system, but I would like to take 1 minute to talk about the workshop that we are also organizing tomorrow at the park. It is Building Feminist Cities Towards Inclusive and Sustainable Transport, and we would like all of you to join us tomorrow as well. I hope you have registered. If not, please let us know. The workshop tomorrow is at 9:30 a.m. at the Park Hotel. Great. So now I will hand over to Rehana Moosajee, and it's my pleasure to introduce her. Rehana brings a range of skills and life experiences to the work she does. Rehana was a councillor in the city of Johannesburg metropolitan municipality between 2000 to 2013. During her tenure as the political head of transport, she led the team that delivered Africa's first bus rapid transport system, Rehana. Rehana and her micro-enterprise, the Barefoot Facilitator, work closely with the community of Slovo Park informal settlement in Johannesburg, translating some of the theoretical concepts discussed on international platforms into practice. Welcome, Rehana. Yeah, sure.
Thank you so much, Sonali. And I guess you all want to say congratulations to Kalpana and Safetipin. Okay, this session is called Women on the Move. If you know you're a panelist, please start moving up to the stage. The rest of you, I'm going to ask you to get out of your seats. Please get out of your seats and move to find someone that you haven't yet chatted to today. And I want you to tell them about one thing that has moved you in the conversations today. There have been remarkable panelists, a wealth of information. So can we stand up out of our chairs? Can we move to find someone we haven't yet spoken to today? People from the front of the room move to the back. People from the back of the room move to the front. And you're having a conversation about one thing that has moved you today. Okay, shh. So you will see on my little name badge, you will see shh, and it stands for soul, heart, head, and hands. And it's so often we get caught up in our heads here. And I just want us to spend a few moments. We are about women on the move. Okay, so I'm going to ask everyone who's in the back of the room, there's enough space in the front. So just come forward, take space at the tables, but don't sit down yet. And I'm going to invite our panelists, if you so choose, to join in and ask people who've been sitting in the front of the room to migrate further back. Those who've had front seats for the day, move further back. And going to invite you just to consolidate things you've been hearing today in your body. So just to allow them to land. Okay, all those people who are far back, you've been back at the back early and you're still at the back. Take your seat at the front table. Come to the front. Don't take a seat yet. So if you're standing in the back of the room, please come forward. If you've been like Ari, myself, Insa, been sitting in the front all day, it's time to move back. It's time to allow others to come forward. If you're at the back, come forward. Okay, and I'm going to invite us to just explore in our bodies what this issue of balance between masculine and feminine looks and feels like in the body. Now, I know if you're wearing a sari, it's probably a little bit more complicated to do, but going to invite you just to use your body and move in, and you can be male or whatever gender you identify yourself with, but what does a feminine movement in your body feel like? If you move in ways that bring out curves and shape, what does feminine movement feel like? So, can I invite us to move? Panelists, can I invite us where we can? And we all have the ability to move many things. Sanjay, please feel free to also move. So what does feminine movement look like? Feel like? I don't see you guys moving. Women on the move. Okay. Waves. Okay, I'm told we can do waves. Feminist movement. Okay, and now I'm going to invite us with our bodies to do a movement, even if you identify as a woman. What does a masculine movement feel like in your body? Yeah? Woo! Let's hear the voice. Let's hear the power, guys. Let's hear it. Manspread. Thank you very much. Please come forward. Please take a seat at one of the tables. Please feel free to sit down at one of the tables. I am not necessarily going to introduce the panel. They are extremely esteemed panelists. They have to take phone calls whilst they're on the stage. That's how esteemed they are. And they have to go and release electric bus fleets in a few moments. But I'm going to ask each of our panelists just to tell you a little bit more about themselves, the organization or institution they represent, and why they think they've been invited by Kalpana and her team to be part of Women on the Move. And we're going to kick off with Sanjay Biswal. I'm not going to kick you, Sanjay, don't worry. Who is the general manager at Capital Region Urban Transport, who has to disappear in a few moments and will come back because they are inaugurating an electric bus fleet. Sanjay, over to you. And when I say shh, then you cut it, right?
Oh, that's the deadline. I can go there? You can go there, yeah. First of all, a warm good afternoon to all of you, and it's very pleasant to see such beautiful, enthusiastic ladies in front of me. It's Women on Move. This the theme of Safetipin, which has completed, I think, 10 years, a decade of service for in the service of betterment of the society. And also the esteemed panelists. Good afternoon to all of you. First of all, myself, Sanjay Biswal, I am the general manager from CRUT. CRUT is an organization working under Housing and Urban Development Department. It's basically a company and working under HUND Department, Government of Odisha. All of us know that the public transportation system, let it be state transport undertakings, the urban transport, it is a quite disarray business, or you can say disarray mode of operation of this transportation system. Just to organize that system, Government of Odisha planned in the year 2018. Basically, the inception was 2018 May, to be particular, and the aim was to have a seamless and sustainable transportation system, because prior to that, there was Junrum scheme, Jawaharlal Nehru Transport System scheme launched by Government of India, and so many undertakes, so many STUs. Basically, they were running under NCC model, net cost contract model. Means the bus was procured by the government, given to operator to operate the buses. So you know better when it is Sarkar ka maal, to usko darya mein dal. So this was the concept, basically, the operator. So now what CRUT thought of, Government of Odisha thought of going into a GCC model of contract, this gross cost contract model. In that, we never purchased anything. Government never spent a single rupee. We just floated a tender called RFP, and we called the operator to be a part of that RFP to give kilometer-wise cost. What is the kilometer-wise cost for operating the buses? They purchased the buses, they took the maintenance, they kept the driver, everything theirs. We were only the principal employers. The drivers, everything was engaged by them, even the RCS engaged the conductors. So this is the basic thing which that's why the CRUT is growing from 2018 to 2023. We started with a fleet of 100 buses. Now we have got 405 buses in our fleet. And what Ms. Rehana told, ki recently we have also got 350 buses. Today only I got the message that 350 e-buses have been approved by Government of India under PM e-bus seva scheme, Prime Minister e-bus seva scheme. So now our fleet is going to be approximately 1,000 buses. And we have previously we were operating basically in the capital region, Bhubaneswar, Cuttack and Puri. And now we have been expanding it to Rourkela, Berhampur and Sambalpur also. And the daily ridership was, we started with nearly 50-60,000. Now it has gone up to 280,000 ridership per day, average ridership. And we have got the highest ridership on this 30th of October to 405,000. And now the main focus thing which I will going to tell you, we have got 40% of our conductors. We don't call them conductors, we call them guides. We have got 40% guide as ladies. We have got lady guides in our crew, and I am proud to share that the lady guides are doing much better than the gents guides. So I am proud to share this here because I am seeing so many lady faces. So that's why I must share this thing. And secondly, now we have also started for these 350 e-buses. We have planned to have even the lady captains. We don't call them drivers, we call them captains, because they should also feel proud and dignified that they are also operating buses, transport system. Because you see, drivers are the most neglected part of the society. Everybody used to just throw away the driver, misbehave the driver. Are ye to driving kar raha hai? But we should have, they have also got something they are doing for us. They are taking 35-40 passengers with them, and safely they are making you to reach home. So they are also important person of the society. So that's why we are going to have, now we have planned to have captains as ladies. So I think CRUT will be the first institution in India who is going to have a all crew of ladies in the buses, captains and guides. So already for that, we have already started identifying the young ladies who are riding these e-rickshaws. One more thing I have to add, we have got also 50 e-rides, that is called e-rickshaws. And actually, I am not permitted to show the video. At the end, I will show it. Because nobody is permitted to do any presentation or video. So that's a very interesting video which I have prepared during our 5th Foundation Day. In that, we have shown everything, how a lady e-ride is a lady Sarathy. She is called Sarathy. She is driving an e-rides. These are the e-rickshaws. And we have got 50 e-rickshaws. In 50 e-rickshaws, we have got 41 lady Sarathis, the lady drivers, and even we have included 9 HIV positive people. So HIV positive people have also been included to drive these e-rides, and we are the first institution who have done this. Oh, it's over. Oh, so I have got a bell now because I have lot to speak, but due to constraint of time, I will just finish up in 3-4 lines more. This capacity building is being done in 4 HMV institutes, Heavy Motor Vehicle Institute. It's state-of-the-art institutes in Odisha. One is 4 places. So if somebody visits Odisha, I will request him and her to visit those institutes. All these institutes are established in the area of 44 acres. It is state-of-the-art institutes giving training to the heavy motor vehicle drivers. We have got refresher course for the drivers. We have got institutional. We've got hostels there. We have got this thing. A lot of facilities are there in that institute, and in that institute we are training those e-rides, rickshaw ladies drivers. And these ladies drivers are getting ready to drive these buses, e-buses. So a lot of things to say, but already bell is there. So I will just wind up. Okay. Thank you so much. And our this thing. The motto of our organization is the way we move. And once again, thanks to Safetipin for giving me a chance to speak here, and and with a lot of restrictions. Thank you.
I normally agree, but Anjlee will go next. But I actually think, Alana, I want to invite you. I'd like to invite Alana, and wherever you feel comfortable, if you want to sit in the chair, you want to be at the podium, I'd like to invite you because it feels like a natural transition. So, Alana, please tell us who you are, tell us more about your organization. I will you off also in 5.
Please don't, Rehana. So thanks, Rehana. And I think why you wanted me to go next is because Sanjay was talking about workers. And I'm from the International Transport Workers Federation, and we are the collective voice of transport workers globally. So our affiliated unions represent about 18.5 million transport workers, men and women, formal and informal. And they are the people who keep our transport systems moving every day in our cities and countries. The workers are organized into over 700 unions worldwide. And in this country, we have 44 transport trade unions that are affiliated to the ITF. So if there are just a few words that you remember about our organization, they should be women workers and trade unions, because women workers can only have a collective voice and power if they are organized in their workplaces into trade unions. And we're really happy to be on this panel, because very often, to be honest with you, the voice, the knowledge, the skills of transport workers are not mobilized as part of the struggle to reshape and transform our cities. And women workers are particularly invisible and unheard, because, to be honest, the urban mobility workforce is a mirror of all the gender inequalities in wider society. So I just want you to think about who you might interact with every day on public transport, and think about the workers that you see. Because who are these women workers? We heard a bit from Sanjav, but they are the ticket sellers, they are the cleaners, they are the catering staff, they are the customer service agents, and they might be the women who are selling the food in the transport hubs. And increasingly, in some countries and companies, they are the drivers and conductors and taking up those operational roles. So these are the women who provide the service. They provide the care. And we've heard a lot today about placing value on the ethics and economics of care. And that's what women workers in transport provide. But what's very interesting, and this is a stark contradiction, globally, only about 15% of the workforce are women. And yesterday in the conference, we heard in India, less than 3% of women in of workers in the transport workforce are women. So there is a complete disconnect because we've also heard the majority of users of public transport are women. So there's a disconnect between the people who are providing the service with the people who are receiving the service. And when women are in the workforce, there is lots of gender inequality and discrimination that they face. So we did a survey of women working in rail, and we found that almost 2/3 of the respondents had experienced gender-based occupational segregation, with higher paid driving jobs mainly done by men, and women mainly carrying out service jobs. 25% of them did not have access to the same training opportunities as men, nor to promotion opportunities. So it's really important, the work that we do, focusing on women in the workforce. And even in our organization, this has not been easy, because trade unions are also often male-dominated spaces. But unless we recognize the particular needs of women workers, we cannot have gender-responsive policy and practice bringing about a transformation. We have to have a holistic view of how unequal gender relations are perpetuated in transport, both as a service as well as an employer. So I want to talk a little bit about what we've done before I get stopped. So what do we do to change all of this as an organization? Firstly, someone spoke earlier about the importance of grassroots organizing. And that's exactly what we do. We make sure that women are organized into trade unions, that they have a voice in trade unions, that we build their leadership and participation in trade unions. Secondly, we address workplace issues globally. And I'll choose one issue because Kalpana spoke about it. Toilets is a major issue for workers in public transport, but for women, it has particular health and safety impacts. And we have taken that issue up at a number of different levels, including trying to negotiate access to sanitation and facilities in workplaces. Thirdly, we've got a global program of work on violence and harassment. And in particular, we've campaigned to get domestic violence recognized as a workplace issue. In this country, we did a survey, 75% of women working in transport had either directly or indirectly experienced domestic violence, and it has a very direct impact on their work. And at a global level, all of you might have heard, we have the first international standard called Convention 190 on violence and harassment in the world of work, which recognizes gender-based violence. And we played a major role with the international trade union movement, campaigning for that and supporting unions. So I'm going to finish.
So I just want to say I'm not compromising their time. We actually want to be in conversation with them, all right? So I'm going to hand it over to Anjlee now to tell us about her organization, the National Center for Accessible Environment. You have your own.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's really an honor to be here and also celebrating the 10 years of Safetipin. Congratulations to the team. Samarthyam has been part of some of the audits that we have conducted together. And I was just talking to Kalpana during the tea time, and she said, oh, I have to come back again and we have to do more. Yes, we have to do more. So journey is long, we've just started and we achieved a bit, but there's so much more to do. Samarthyam, my organization, was founded in 1993. It's an organization of persons with disabilities, and we started talking about accessible transportation, and the first word that I got from the ministry, I don't want to name them, they said, oh, you're talking about luxury. So we said, no, sir, this is not luxury, this is a matter of right. And that thing actually hit him, the joint secretary that time, it hit him so hard. He said, what do you want us to do? And I said, we'll give you the designs. So what we did was to give the designs of the low-flow buses that you're seeing in Delhi these days, and all over the country. The BRTS system is using them. The mass rapid transit system, which is the MRTS, Delhi Metro is one of the examples, our pilot project. And we set up the standards in a way that not only that we advocated for the accessibility standards within the public transportation system, but also made it possible through the funding agencies. So if, whether it is ADB or whether it is JICA or JIBEC, any other bank which is giving a funding to the Government of India for any transportation projects, we made them give a thumb rule, and that is if it is accessible and inclusive, if it is equitable, then only the funding will be given to the agency. So I think beside making the policy, we also advocated in a very big way that all people with disabilities, without disabilities, and especially women and girls, they should feel equitable, safe, and more so what I always keep saying is dignified when they're using the public transportation system. So in 2006, the National Urban Transport Policy came up. Here also we pitched into putting a lot of information and sections on accessibility and inclusive designs. And because of that, we got the urban bus specifications 1 and 2, which Indian government is looking at right now for procuring buses. And I'm sure Mr. Sanjay, when I spoke to him earlier, and he looked at me and he said, yes, I'll make sure that the buses are accessible. I take it as a commitment and a promise, and I'm not going to leave you, sir, if you don't do it. The NUTP was again amended in 2014, and in that also we saw that each and every line, because if we don't put it into the policy, it doesn't percolate down. So we made it possible for them to write it down in the paper and then put it in the policy and then implement it. Beginning from there, moving on to the current situation, what we see in the country right now, majority of the BRTS system and the mass rapid transit system are accessible in a very big way. Sometimes you do find a tokenism of a ramp, but that's okay. At least they've started thinking about it. And we have also made a lot of codes and guidelines and manuals for Indian Roads Congress, for Ministry of Urban Development then, which is now called Ministry of Urban Affairs, as well as for the National Building Code, for the bus shelter designs, and so on. These codes and guidelines are used by the engineers, architects, and also professionals as Bible, as Quran, and Gita, whatever you can call. But the point here is that unless you put it into the standards, nothing comes forward. So as members of the steering committee for the Accessible India campaign, a flagship campaign which was launched in 2015 by our Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, we also saw that the Accessible India campaign looked at 3 verticals: transportation system, built environment, and also the ICT, which is the information communication technology. Now, all these 3 areas that I'm talking right now are important not only for women or girls with disability, but for everyone. And it took us 2 years to actually strategize the entire campaign with the government, and also to see that the ecosystems and all the verticals are not only inclusive, equitable, but also the decision makers have to realize that this is high time that they take the stakeholders, the public transport users, as people who would decide for the policy. So the decision makers will also come along with the people. I'm just going to wrap up with a couple of small points. Please allow me 2-3 minutes. The research
I'll allow
that we
you
built up,
2 more because then we want to open for the others.
all right. So research and work that we did with the grassroots women with disabilities, which is very interesting, that they narrated their lived experiences and expertise to drive meaningful shifts and lead our communities towards a more accessible, inclusive, and equitable world. Like all women, women with disabilities continue to face inequality, and they face discrimination while they use the public transportation system. So here, what we did was to bring in the insight of age, disability, and gender friendly and practices. So I think what we are trying to do right now is to bring in solidarity, to connect with a lot of the women groups, Jagori is here, Sangat, we have connected, and to bring about an equitable tomorrow, and also to see that women are witnessed as the change makers, as the catalyst towards the equitable transportation and just not the users of the transportation system.
Thanks, Dr. Anjlee. And I think I'm going to transition it over to Naomi because I think there's so much overlap in what Naomi does at Flone. You want to go there? Okay.
Hi, everyone. My name is Naomi Mwaura. I come from a country called Kenya in East Africa region. It's about 8 hours flight from here. So I represent an organization called Flone Initiative. We are a women-led and run organization that works in public transport industry in Kenya, but we've done projects in neighboring countries of Uganda and even Rwanda. We are most popularly known for our work in women in transport, but we also work on disability mainstreaming. Our work foundation is normally driven by research. So we do a lot of research, minimum 4 studies per year. But the unique thing about our research is that we do not take any research grant that does not have an implementation budget. So we have to implement the research recommendations that the research we conduct proposes. So, for example, on our work on disability mainstreaming, we were able, from the research proposed that we develop a guidebook for operators on how to support and interact with persons with disability. And based on that work, actually that guidebook is being adopted and endorsed by the National Council for Persons with Disability in Kenya. So now it's going to become an official government document. We also work on behavior change. That means changing attitudes and behavior through trainings and awareness campaigns. Again, I think we are the only, I am sure, we are the only certified organization in Kenya that is accredited by the Kenyan government to conduct trainings on gender and disability mainstreaming in Kenya. Lastly, we are a small organization. And to be honest, we are not trying to solve everything by ourselves. So we do have our last mandate, which is movement building. And that means bringing as many stakeholders as possible to work on the issue. And on this, as I mentioned, our most popular program is the Women in Transport, where we have Women in Transport chapters. So we attract, advance, and retain women professionals in the industry. So starting from conductors, drivers, bus managers. In Kenya, we say about a bus employs a minimum of 4 people. So we have the driver, we have the conductor, the person who collects money, we have the person who calls you into the vehicle, and we have the person who sits inside the vehicle. So there's an illusion that the bus is about to leave. And all these people are paid within this informal system. So we bring women together. So far we have about 4 chapters. And what has been really interesting with these chapters is going into an area, a city or an urban area, and seeing where women have carved their space in public transport. So for example, in Nairobi, which is the oldest city in Kenya, most of the women work in the 33-seater bus, which we call matatus. I'll have a presentation tomorrow about it. In a town called Machakos, most of the women are owners in a 7-seater minibus. In another city called Nakuru, you find that about 75% of the women in the chapter work on motorbike taxis. Yes, so in brief, that is our work, and excited to be here.
Thank you. Thanks, Naomi. Aishwarya, bring the mic to you. You're coming to the podium. You have your own mic.
Thank you so much. First of all, congratulations to Kalpana and team at Safetipin. Kalpana started the day by talking about technology being an enabler. Sonali added to that in the previous panel and also mentioned that technology is a leveler. I would like to build on that thesis and talk about technology's democratizing elements while recognizing that there are some challenges. I am Aishwarya. I am the Executive Director of OMI Foundation, previously known as Solar Mobility Institute. We are a 5-year-old organization who conduct extensive research in the mobility policy domain, primarily in India, with some sort of spillovers to other parts of the world. My background is in sociology. I graduated from the Madras University, subsequently went to Oxford. I did a whole thesis on auto rickshaw drivers in a city, Chennai, from where we have Meera and so many other friends. Chennai's drivers almost a decade back were extremely notorious for refusing to ferry a passenger, for refusing to go to the preferred destination of the passenger, for overcharging, for bargaining with passengers usually. And all of this was systemic an outcome, right? Simply because the auto rickshaw rates in Chennai had not been revised for several decades. So you suddenly were in 2000s and you expected workers to be operating at a 1980 tariff. So how do you expect this to work seamlessly? How do you engender trust between the passenger and the worker? And we also understood through my thesis that, this informal, or I would like to use the phrase popular transport, intermediate public transport such as auto rickshaws, taxi cabs, and bike taxis, etc. This popular transport also suffered from the virtue of belonging to the informal economy, so you don't have social security, you don't have a lot of other benefits that come with formal sector employment. So my introduction to the mobility ecosystem began there a decade back when I was doing my sociological study, but very soon converted it into an enterprise called Auto Raja and Auto Rani, and that's one of the reasons I believe Kalpana and team have invited me here to talk about my experience of running one of India's earliest and pre-smartphone era aggregator business. So we were a call auto service. I personally got to work with 2,500 family members in Chennai. We worked out of slum rehabilitation centers, and the experience was transformative. But we also got the opportunity to get women together and form some of India's earliest fleets of women drivers. Some of the challenges that I would like to share here, and perhaps also ask our co-panelists later, is to recognize some of the asset gaps that exist and that we see between men and women. It's not as easy for a woman to take up driving because there are asset-based challenges. One, ownership of the vehicle is a huge question mark today. Accessing formal sector credit, formal credit to go buy an auto rickshaw, a two-wheeler, a four-wheeler is also a huge challenge. Once you learn how to drive and you're in the process of getting a license, there are a lot of hoops you have to jump through, again posing a lot of hindrances. In India, until 2018, a license holder could not easily become a commercial vehicle operator, because to get a commercial license you had to wait a whole year, in which there was not going to be any livelihood opportunity or remunerative opportunity. And thanks to a lot of efforts by folks like Kalpana, and I don't know if we have representatives from Azad Foundation or Sakha Cabs, so they've all worked a lot to ensure that this commercial vehicle license requirement is done away with. And as soon as one learns how to drive, they also have the opportunity to earn. And those gaps we are seeing getting filled through technology-enabled, platform-based mobility solutions. And I'm not sure how many more minutes I have. 0, 1. So I'd like to fast track to now and talk about the research we are doing at OMI Foundation, right? So we've interviewed several thousand workers belonging to the mobility economy. Individuals operating as platform workers. They're affiliated to platforms like Ola, Uber, as well as professional home services like Urban Company, and delivery and e-commerce platforms. So we've understood the challenges and the opportunities associated with becoming a platform worker. And more importantly, of these individuals that we've surveyed, close to 700 were women inside, within and outside the platform economy, we conducted several comparative analysis to understand what was enabling women to take up such roles. So in the mobility economy, there are a lot of insights I'd like to share. Perhaps I'll reserve them for the next set of comments we'd be allowed to make.
Perfect.
Thank
so, thank you so much to these amazing women. I'm going to leave it to them to open a conversation amongst themselves if there's anything that any of your panelists have said that triggers a question, a comment. So it's really a conversation between you. Anybody that wants to go.
Okay. So I have a few questions, both for Alana and Naomi. We heard Sanjay speak about electric rickshaw drivers of in Odisha, who are all women. We've seen such examples come up in India also, where there are for women, by women, auto rickshaw or taxi services. But they've not scaled as much as we want them to. So in your experience of working with women drivers who take up, taxi, auto rickshaw, bike taxi, motorbike taxi driving, how long, what is their longevity in such spaces? And, are there any learnings for India? How do we go from 3% to 15%, etc.? And
yes, okay, yeah, thank you for that question. I would say that, first of all, India is ahead of Kenya in terms of adoption of electric mobility. So actually, Flone was the first to provide the first Kenyan electric driver. The first Kenya female electric driver, yes. No, sorry, that's not right. The first female electric bus driver. And that was about 3 months ago. So I think for Kenya, the adaptation of electric vehicles has been slowed down, I think first because of innovation, and second because of market entry. So we are private public transport. So it is run informally, it's run by individuals who come together and form a public transport organization. They are very powerful informal group, and I think people underestimate how powerful the informal system is. And so when they come in, they're like, oh, we can get into this system, and that is never true. So market entry is such a big barrier in terms of Kenya. I think for us, we've seen an increase in women drivers first when there was more formalization of the industry. So individuals who own buses were required to join the organizations, and they are required to have policies, but they are not enforced. So you either have a policy because you as a transport organization decide to, but it's not enforced. So the companies that have policies, we find that women tend to want to work there more. I think another thing that, and the reason why we started the Women in Transport chapters is first we started with attracting and advancing, and then we added the third middle tagline, which is retention, because there is such a high turnover of women in this industry that we had to stop the project and say, okay, for the first 2 years of the project, we are just going to focus on retaining. So we have a database of women, and we kept meeting these women, providing both personal and professional development courses. So for example, personal development courses were things like parenting classes. Most of our women are single mothers of female-led households with an average of 3 children. And you're working 12 hours a day, right? And so parenting was such a big issue that we now have a class on it. We also do professional development classes. As I mentioned, we also do driver training, conductor training, bus driver training. And just, for example, even mediating between ourselves and the public transport organization. So, for example, there was one case where a lady had a young child, could not find a neighbor because most of the ladies could not afford a nanny, so they leave the child either with a neighbor or a younger siblings. So she couldn't find a neighbor, came with a child to work, and the commuters were so happy to hold the baby while she's busy collecting money. But unfortunately, somebody posted on social media and she got fired. And so we mediated in that instance to say, hey, you should give, for example, you should accept and acknowledge that caregiving responsibilities are part of the workforce you're dealing with. And there was nothing, nobody complained about the child. They actually got good PR because everybody was like, oh, look at this cute baby in the bus and all that. And she got her job back. But that was one of the instances, even instances of police brutality, where during COVID, our women were taking people to home, but how do they themselves get home? And so they would be caught outside curfew. There was one who was really beaten, ended up in hospital. And we did an intervention between the traffic police in that area and the public transport operators, and trying to get her counseling in order to get to deal with the trauma and get back to work. So I think the biggest component I would say for us is the retaining bit. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just really wanted to add to what Naomi is saying, that I think often some of these new recruitment drives are being done in isolation of other changes that need to be made in the workplace in order to retain women. So I think unless you have a comprehensive strategy that looks at issues of recruitment and retention, a lot of these recruitment drives, while they're good in theory, it's going to be very difficult to sustain them over time. So just one initiative that I wanted to talk about that we have as an organization with the international umbrella body of public transport providers called the UITP is we've got a global comprehensive agreement on promoting women's employment and equal opportunity in the public transport sector worldwide. And that looks at recruitment, but it also looks at a wide range of other issues. In fact, they fall under 9 key areas. One of them being working conditions, another being wage equality, another one being violence and harassment. You're not going to be able to retain women as drivers if they are constantly feeling unsafe. Issues of workplace design, for example. So I think that's really what I wanted to contribute, that it's recruitment and retention.
Alana, do you have any questions for any panelists on the panel? Do you have questions for fellow panelists, and then if you want to follow up?
Yes.
But I think Naomi has a question.
I have a question. Again, we are the only organization working on disability mainstreaming in public transport. The program is about 3 years old. It's pretty young. And you mentioned about working on designs, right? And I'm curious, was that a co-creation workshop? How has the adoption been? Any learnings that when I go back home that I could implement to develop designs that are for and by persons with disability that the government can adopt?
Absolutely. A very good question, and I just reflected upon it that we as users are the ones who can provide the best designs, nobody else. So there's an old saying which is very common and popular, and I'm sure everybody's heard about it. It's nothing about us without us. So herein, what we did was the BRTS system was coming up in Delhi, and IIT Delhi, which is the main body who was designing buses with the Tata Motors, that is one of the companies, they were looking for the design of the buses. And we intervened and we said that it should be inclusive. They said we have no idea except the ramp. And the ramp in the buses cannot be provided because these are high chassis buses. So the high chassis buses are basically made on truck chassis. So the bus body is not a bus body, but it is a truck body. And we said if you have a 900 millimeter high truck chassis, we cannot provide a 3 meters long ramp because the whole road space will be gone. So the Tata Motors, they said, okay, we want you on board. And we went to their factory, designed the design of the bus, the low flow bus, which is very common internationally. If you go even to a country like Japan, they use a low flow bus. The only click was that they need to have a low chassis bus. And that is the intervention where it started in India with 3 buses to 1,100 buses right now. And it's been procured all over the country by different agencies. So I think the question that you have, the answer is advocate at every point of time, starting from policy implementation to funding to designing. and make sure that you intervene if the design is not accessible, if it is not safe, if it is not user friendly. Step in and say, hold on, you can't roll the buses, you can't put in the fleet into the market unless these are accessible. So that is a mantra that we keep saying to all the organizations. Thank you.
Anjlee, any questions from you?
I'm fine, yeah, I'm fine.
Alana, you have a question?
Yeah, suppose the one question on my mind is seeing these similarities in the issues between users of public transport and the women workers in public transport, and how we build that alliance between those two different groups, because actually that's what's going to bring about transformation. So I'm thinking of, issues. Vehicle design is a big issue for women as workers as well. Violence and harassment has been spoken about a lot. Access to facilities is both a worker and a user issue. So any ideas of how you've built a movement towards connecting those issues so that as women across the transport system, we're able to bring about that gender equal transformation?
There's perhaps one or two examples I can give from what we've done at OMI Foundation. We've created, we also see ourselves as a convening authority in that from the job creator to the worker as well as the consumer, we are able to create spaces where they can hold some kind of tripartite conversations outside of, the forums that the government and or other multilateral and non-governmental organizations are able to create. So two such initiatives at OMI have taken the shape of these flagships. One is a property we built called Ease of Moving Index. This is us measuring mobility in more than 100 indicators beyond just congestion. So here we are talking about accessibility and safety from getting mugged, safety from gender-based violence in public spaces, which is equally relevant to a woman user of mobility services and infrastructure as it is relevant for a woman service provider herself. So our research took us to 40 cities in India. We spoke to 50,000 citizens in an offline fashion and also conducted 20 focus group discussions throughout. A pilot of this was something that we were able to do with Anjali's organization, Samarthyam, where in our study called On the Move, we looked at women and men living with disabilities and how do they navigate urban spaces in India. Now, likewise, on focusing on workers, we had a detailed, initiative called Women in the Platform Economy, where we brought together platform businesses and e-commerce marketplaces that were creating these new age jobs. And thanks to technology, we're able to reframe the role of women in public and private life. But look at what are the measures they are taking. For example, we spoke about some retention measures, but if a delivery business is able to geofence the deliveries assigned to workers within a specific geography that the woman is able to commute, perhaps that is a good measure again, because it's a gender inclusive practice by that platform business to get more women who are easily accessing two-wheelers today in India to become platform workers, to participate more actively in the economy. So these are two initiatives. One, the larger, mobility survey of sorts involving several thousand individuals across multiple smart cities in the country called Ease of Moving. And the other where we are looking at workers. And we continue to build such initiatives, bringing numerous voices together as we derive policy insights for our governments and more.
Yes, we work on women as users and professionals, and in two ways. So we have two different interventions for the group. So for example, with the users, it's more of awareness campaigns. We've done this in form of theaters, film, a protest, But for women as professionals, it's been providing training. So we equip women with the skills to be better skilled professionals in the workplace. But also, especially now with the e-mobility movement, where social enterprises are the ones leading that innovation, our conversations with social enterprises has been to stop them from looking at women as end users of their products, right? And have women throughout the value chain. A lot of the conversations that social enterprises approach us to have is, how can we have women drivers? And I'm like, but there's a whole value chain that you're not talking about. And for some reason, we are, as a country, stuck on women drivers, which is a good first step, but there's so much more that we can do. And the way I see our role in this is that we have an opportunity in Kenya to put all the learnings and make sure that e-mobility does not continue to further amplify the inequalities we see in society. And so I see our role as sounding the alarm to say, hey, we are about to get it wrong again, and we are here to provide technical advice. So, for example, we've worked with an e-bike company in Kigali to help them increase their employment outcomes for women professionals in their company. And so based on that, they were able to bring in about 30 women who were just not only the drivers of the motorbike taxis, but also became investors. So they own the bikes that they have. It was a good first step, a good pilot that we are hoping to replicate in other social enterprises.
Any further?
Just the last one. I just want to add about the value that we bring in with the audits that we do. It's like a gap analysis where we do the assessment and see throughout the trip chain whether somebody is walking or using a public transport, how women can make a difference in terms of, as a user, and bring in that perspective and share the findings, the data, and the all the voices. It's basically experiences and stories that we share with the policymakers and tell them, say, if you're doing this and if you're still going wrong, then there's no future of this public transportation system. Unless women are feeling safe and unless they are feeling, they feel equitable and they feel dignified to use a public transportation, it will become user-friendly for everyone. Yeah. So if the women says it's friendly, that means it's friendly for everyone. So in that kind of a light, the assessment recommendations were given, and the policymakers had welcomed with open arms, and that something worked well to begin with in Delhi and Mumbai in India.
Last comment. Okay. So Naomi touched upon how the electric mobility transition of countries as they decarbonize their transport sectors offers an excellent opportunity to feminize the automotive industry. So we are seeing, green shoots of that in India, where a lot of the traditional internal combustion engine manufacturers of vehicles who are now introducing electric vehicles also, as well as your new age startups that have started large scale manufacturing of electric vehicles and batteries in India, not just have their factory floors filled with women, but also a lot of them have decision-making powers being taken or wielded by women in those organizations. So many electric vehicle manufacturing startups in the country, as well as those that are providing charging infrastructure solutions, are in fact founded by women. Some of them have had great exits recently. They've gotten acquired by larger companies, and they're proving to be pioneers and role models for young women in STEM. But we also see the more visible roles of driving and becoming conductors too being taken up by women. So absolutely, I think getting more, STEM, women into STEM, also providing more vocational training while women are learning, right? So this whole dual system of training and earning while you learn are sort of tenets that are necessary to get more women into the transportation space, into the mobility space, to have more women on the move. We also see several other measures taken by businesses that are engaging women in non-traditional employment opportunities, such as platform jobs. So here we are seeing some amount of gender inclusion measures take the shape of maternity benefits, or for that matter, leveraging suggestions to leverage the public infrastructure that we have. So in India, we have a lot of Anganwadis. So leveraging them to benefit a worker whose job is extremely mobile, and a worker whose workplace is the entire city itself, is also equally important. So this is where grassroots organizations' participations, higher collaboration between the private sector and the public sector also becomes important. I'll stop with these 2 points.
Thank you. So I'm going to invite colleagues at tables. Safetipin have done these beautiful books for us. And it's such a pleasure to have blank paper where you can draw or write or do anything you want with it. I'm going to invite you just to get your little booklet out, if you haven't taken it out of your beautiful bag yet, to either draw or use your non-dominant hand. So if you're normally right-handed, switch the pen to the other hand. Okay, and just from this panel and from the day, what, at a personal level, what is it going to take for women on the move to really accelerate equitable transport systems? So you can draw, write with your non-dominant hand. I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to do that. So don't overthink it. It doesn't need to look neat. Nobody's coming to check. You are writing about anything you've heard on this panel or anything you've heard since this morning that would enable the acceleration, the speeding up of women on the move towards a more equitable transport system. So you're either drawing or you're writing with your non-dominant hand in this beautiful book that Safetipin has given you. Done. Wonderful. We're going to take your question in a minute. Okay, once you're done, because I'm hearing some dones, just have a quick discussion at your table about some of your drawing, some of what your non-dominant hand told you. 30 seconds at your table or in the configuration of people around you there.
Yes, yes.
Some tables are very quiet, some are very noisy. Yes, just have a discussion. The people at the back, you can also have a discussion, even though you don't have a table. Okay, 30 more seconds. 30 seconds. And Sanjay is also back. Welcome back, Sanjay. No, it's lovely to have you back. And we're hoping that there might still be people who have questions for you on the panel as well. Okay. 10, 9, 8, 5, 4, 3, to We're opening for questions now. We'll take the first one over there.
I have two questions. One is...
Please introduce yourself.
My name is Surabhi. I'm a consultant with Safetipin. My name is Surabhi. I'm a consultant with Safetipin. I have two questions, one specific, and which is for Sanjay, and one generic. The generic one is, I'm curious about when there was a conversation about retention of workers. So I'm curious about the kind of policies which are in place for, say, things like the Maternity Benefit Act, or any of those in India or elsewhere, because that's one of the major deterrents. What happens when a woman's having a baby? A woman worker in the transport industry is having a baby, like she mentioned that example. And the second is for Sanjay. I've read a little bit about the very interesting bus stop schemes that they are there in Bhubaneswar. I'm extremely curious, where do you get the space for having, the kind of infrastructure that you're providing near the bus stops? If I were to look at Delhi and then I want a toilet and a cafe, etc., where do you find those? Or are they just exceptions to the rule? Thank you.
Basically,
Okay, just hold on. I'm noting other hands. We're going to take a round of 3 and then allow for some responses and see where that takes us to in terms of time.
Okay, I'm Snehal from Akshara organization, which is based in Mumbai. So my question again is for Sanjay. So basically, you said it very nicely that that you're happy that women conductors are there and they're doing good job. So I like for me or for all of us, we have a perspective from the lens that we look into it. But what is your take on this? Why do you say this, that women are more productive or they're good, that we have more number of women and they're doing good? So I just wanted to know that.
first of all,
Okay, I'm going to take one more and then we'll move it along.
that is also for me.
Yeah, hello. All right, just want to add...
There's a power struggle over time here.
Just want to add to the question here as well, because I think the retention aspect of women in the mobility sector is very important. Of course, there's one policy aspect as to what are the policies in place, but the other challenge that we see is also largely social and behavioral, where the families and the households and the communities are not allowing for women to enter these workspaces. So if you have examples of some of the retention strategies that are focused towards combating those challenges, would love to hear them as well.
Okay, wonderful. We're going to start with Sanjay and then move it along with anyone else on the panel who wants to respond.
Answer your question. Actually, we are having bus queue shelters. When we started with this urban transportation, having this sophisticated bus stops was a challenge. So we planned 6 meter by 9 meter and 6 meter by 3 meters, 2 designs we prepared. And those were very much approved by the government. And you must have seen those buses also. These buses are also, bus queue shelters are very much there in Bhubaneswar and Cuttack. And actually there is scarcity of land in Bhubaneswar. As you know, though it is a planned city, but still the bus stops should be adjacent to the roads. So we just have to acquire some land by removing the encroachments, and we didn't want to disturb the footpaths. So that's why adjacent to the footpaths we choose some of the space we got from the BMC and BDA, Bhubaneswar Development Authority, and Bhubaneswar Municipal Corporation, and then we prepared 200 bus queue shelters. Now those bus queue shelters are having LED display facilities, and we have also got a very nice Mobus app. Mobus application is there. In that you can also track your buses, and in that way those bus queue shelters were developed. Now we have also, government has also sanctioned for further 200 bus queue shelters in the outskirts of Bhubaneswar and also in the twin city of Cuttack. And Raulkela also we have come up with 100 bus queue shelters. So we are coming up with a lot of bus queue shelters, and our stoppages are fixed. We have got designated stoppages, and our buses stick to the timings. No matter whatever passengers are there, but timings we are sticking. That's why we have loved by. That's why it's become the major transportation and loved by all. Our ridership has that's why gone up to now 4.5 lakhs per day, with 405 buses. That's why we are going to procure another 550 buses. Just now I finished my VC with government, and very much they approved. And I have put Madam's point regarding the low floor buses having accessibility for this point. And these buses are insured. These buses are insured as per the urban transport policy. And the JBM is the vendor who will be providing 200 buses to us, JBM company. You might have seen the JBM buses in the airports, Bangalore airport, and these electric buses for transporting, we might have seen that. They are also the user-friendly buses. They are also transporting in the airports, various airports in India. And regarding the second question, I think that is enough for you, or you want to add something? Okay. And what you told, how you assess that our women, I will not call them conductors, they are our guides. So this conductor word, we are the first, we have removed this conductor word from our dictionary. We have guides and captains. So they've got a very nice dress code is there, and they are wearing uniforms. Whenever they are on duty, they are also having their caps and very nice uniform for all the guides, all the captains. I will request if you get someone of you might get a chance to visit Bhubaneswar, do come to Bhubaneswar and just let me know. I will also share my contact details to you, and you can see how nicely that we have maintained our transport systems. We have got very sophisticated depots. We have got restrooms for our guides and even captains, and we are ensuring that they get a better workplace and better atmosphere. And even in these festive seasons, we have ensured their bonus and gifts, and that the best guide, best captains are being also encouraged by giving them incentives, whatever I've told. So this type of things we are doing. And how we found that women guides are better, because we have got ETIMs, electronic ticket issue machines, that are ETI machines, which is connected through our to our website and to our app. So whenever we used to daily compare the performance of each and every guides. So whenever you used to see what is the collection, mostly the collection is through UPI, but also there is cash collection is also allowed. So whenever you used to compare, the collection of the women guides is better than that of gents guide. So that's why now we are thinking to transform the entire fleet of our captains, entire fleets of our guides with ladies. And we are going to downstreams ladies. We are going to Jhopatpattis and all these things. We are and also we have got a very good training center, World Skills Center in Odisha, and Odisha Skill Development is now tied with us. They have partnered with us. And we have also started the training of our captains and guides, and this training is ongoing training, and I think tomorrow is the validity for the first 5 days training. It is going to be over tomorrow. So regularly we are thinking about the capacity building. We are taking the experts. Tata Strive is our knowledge partner who is giving the training. So these are the things we are ensuring just to have a better working environment. And if we'll have a complete crew of captain and guides as ladies, I think the lady commuter will be safe, because our buses are flying up to 11 o'clock in the night. So with lady captain and lady guide, all the commuters, especially the lady commuters, they will feel more safe to travel in those buses.
Thank you. Thank you, Sanjay.
Thank you.
I want to give each of our panelists kind of a closing opportunity for a closing comment, about 2 minutes each. Anjlee?
just wind up. I will first wind up because I have to catch a flight at 8. So again, it will take, I think, 1 hour from here to move to airport. So that's why thank you very much, and thank you inviting me to this occasion. And there are a lot of things to spare. You can keep my cell number 9437166372. And if anything is required, any help, and if you, I welcome you all to Odisha, to Bhubaneswar, to just have a look at how our system is working. So you have to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
all of
Sanjay. Travel safely.
Thank you. Namaskar. Thank you. Namaskar.
Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna move it over. So just allow for Sanjay to exit. Okay, let's allow.
So I remember a couple of questions which come up earlier when we were doing the discussion. What can be the drivers of change and transformation? I think one of the drivers is also the law in the country that we have. If I talk about a very powerful law that we have right now is the Rights of Persons with Disability Act 2016, which is actually looking at accessibility of the transportation systems. But having that law is not enough, because no law can bring about change unless we advocate for the change. So we have to be the drivers of change. We have to be the catalyst. We are the ones who have to voice our concerns, and everything personal is political. Unless I talk about myself that I'm not safe, I'm not able to access it, I'm not feeling comfortable. If somebody is looking at me, staring at me, if there are no CCTV cameras, but that's not enough. I just need to put in very clearly that I want these things as recommendations, and that might solve the problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Naomi?
Allow me to just, my closing remarks to answer to the participant who asked a question. I think when it comes to family, we looked at family in two ways. So family as the nuclear family, but also creating an ecosystem of family. So one is that we always have family in the beginning of the project. So if we are doing a training, we invite them to bring their children and their husband to the event. And then after graduation, we also invite their families, their children to come to the graduation. So, and we do a university style type of graduation. I am in this ridiculous chancellor's hat, and they're in gowns, and we do the whole procession and the certificates and all that stuff. I think the other one is trying to normalize women working in the industry through various advocacy. As I've talked about, our women have been featured in TV stations, films, graffiti. But one of the success stories has been, there's one of our women who was a conductor, and her husband was a driver. And that story really it really became very popular in like our circles, because now women would call and say, I have been in the house looking for a job. My husband is a matatu driver. I could just join him. And for this particular couple, they started as a driver conductor, and now they have their own bus. And now the lady actually works at Flone. I think the other one is trying to market being in the public transport as a viable career. I think if you just go to our social media pages, you'll see, I think yesterday we posted about a lady who has had a 15-year career in the sector, right? So showcasing those stories that make working in the public transport not as an informal thing that Kenyans do while they're waiting for a white-collar job, but as a viable professional career. I think the other one I've talked about is creating a wider ecosystem of family. So we have guest speakers. So guest speakers are, for example, we have member of parliaments come and talk to the women. It's usually you're just allowed 1 hour of just getting to know the women. And this has led, for example, to us receiving government support through bursaries. About a week ago, we had the National Health Insurance Fund come and give a talk to the women. And so what that creates is that there's this ecosystem that knows about the women and the challenges they face. So it's very easy for me, for example, if somebody is wrongfully arrested, let me emphasize the word wrongfully arrested, I am able to pick the phone and say, hey, one of our women has been wrongfully arrested. This is what happened. Could you find out from your team if that's what happened? And if it's a wrongful arrest, then they will be released immediately. But you've created that relationship that it's so easy for them to relate to the women. Yeah, thank you.
We are seeing a lot of parallels, in fact, in India too. We have similar experiences of companies, also nonprofits working with family members directly. We're also seeing a lot of single mothers take to driving jobs because, I'm sure there are no male family members questioning why women are taking such risk jobs, in their words. Beyond this, I'd also like to answer the other question that was posed. There are a few other laws that are coming into place to protect the rights of workers and help create a more conducive environment for them as they navigate cities for their jobs. For example, India introduced a landmark act called the Code on Social Security 2020, which calls for social security for all workers, regardless of what we call them. I think a lot of the governments are still figuring out the taxonomy, classifications of workers, but here we've identified a new category called platform workers and are providing, are guaranteeing social protection to them. But the law hasn't taken effect yet, so the rules and regulations have to be notified. At the same time, several state governments and platform businesses themselves have voluntarily introduced certain measures. So the maternity benefit I spoke about, and there are also platforms that are providing paid leaves. There is health insurance, there's accident cover. All these are voluntarily offered by platform businesses. Some of these are viable for platform businesses to cover the 100% of the workforce affiliated to them. But there are certain other measures that are, from a financial viability standpoint, applicable only to workers who are showing longer sort of connection to the platform. So that's where we'll have to understand what are these inclusive, exclusive practices that both the government and private sector schemes can lend themselves to. And a lot of work is required to navigate this space and ensure workers have access to everything. I think one thing the panel didn't speak about is digital accessibility. So I know we did speak about physical infrastructure accessibility, etc. But also something that we must do is ensure that public transport information is as accessible to everybody, including women, persons with disabilities, and intersectionalities. So there is, Anjlee, I think one national framework around this, which calls for all mobility apps in the country providing information about their services to be inclusive. So there are, I think you can, now go challenge if they're not and ensure that there is heightened awareness as well around this. I'll stop with that.
Yeah, I just wanted to pick up on a few issues. So on this issue of the law, of course, the law is very important and it'll differ from one country to another. But often on the issue of workers' rights or women's rights in workplaces, the law is very weak. And whether it's weak or strong, often the law is not even implemented. So I think it's important for us to struggle to change laws, but also to look at what action workers can take on their own behalf to win those rights, regardless of the law. So, and I want to use maternity as an example of that. So in some countries, maternity laws are very strong. In other countries, they're non-existent or weak. But where workers, and particularly women workers, have been organized into unions, they've managed to win a wide range of rights on maternity, from getting paid time off work to not being moved into a different job when they return from maternity leave, to having breastfeeding rights in the workplace after a baby's born, to not having discriminatory questions during recruitment to a job about whether you're going to have children or are you pregnant. So I think that's really important. We need the laws, but we also need to find spaces in which we can win those rights. And I want to come back to what I said about C190 and the importance of us uniting to get that convention ratified into national law, including here in India. I think Mexico might be one of the countries that has ratified C190, but even without the ratification, that it's got really strong language, it's a strong international standard, it includes gender-based violence and harassment, about how we can incorporate that into our activist work, our campaigns, and into negotiating in workplaces. And I suppose the very last thing that I want to say about this link between workers and users is that I think what can be very strong in terms of our discourse and narrative is that quality services and quality jobs are totally interconnected. The more representative the workforce is, the more rights women workers have, the more likely it is to be that the service is gender responsive and the needs of women as users are met. So in our work, let's try and make that connection between quality jobs and quality services for women.
Thank you very much to this phenomenal panel. Lots of ongoing stuff to be processed, no doubt. This was not part of my brief, but I'm going to invite Kalpana and the Safetipin team. Please join the panelists on the stage. Safetipin team, everybody who's part of the Safetipin team. It will happen later, but this is our unscripted brief as the audience and this panel. So really want to, please make your way up.
Yes.
So when I received...
I realize how big the team is.
When I received the invitation via Women Mobilize Women to say there's this event happening, it felt like a long way to travel from South Africa, which no longer has a direct flight to India, by the way, thanks to our connections as countries. I was like, do I really want to do this? And then I thought about Kalpana, and I thought about this amazing team and the work that they have done for a decade. And I'm sure you'll join me in saying that women are on the move, that transport, equitable transport, no longer feels that far away. We can feel it, we can see it, thanks to this amazing team. So I'm going to ask you, someone made the point about a wave being the kind of sign of movement. So I'm going to ask you to do a wave to honor them. No. You can do better than that. You can do better than that. Can you stand up? Can we do a wave to honor this amazing team of people? So can we lead that wave? And as we do so, I wear my South African flag today because I'm not able to be at home with our trophy tour after the Rugby World Cup. But I don't know if any of you caught a clip of our rugby captain, Siya Kolisi. Rugby was a sport that historically was seen as the sport of kind of the oppressors. And in 1995, President Nelson Mandela stood on a rugby field and said, sport has the ability to unite a nation. You have no idea on Saturday night what happened in South Africa. But what Siya has also done is he's become a role model for young boys. And he talks about his mum having given birth to him at age 15. Her family didn't approve. She goes and leaves him outside his father's school gate. His father has to leave an exam, takes him and goes to leave him with the grandmother. And the grandmother becomes the epitome of love and care in his life. As a young boy, he has the opportunity to pick up his mother's teeth from a gender-based violence incident in the community. He tells the story of how all the men in that community either did drugs or were alcoholics. We come, and I'm kind of conscious of where I'm ending up standing in this, but we come from 2 continents, different countries that have faced similar histories of trauma that have been carried by generations. And it's going to require a healing of intergenerational trauma if we really want to see spaces, transit systems, cities that are phenomenally different to the ones we inherited from our colonial masters. And so the work we're doing is for our ancestors. The work we're doing is for our children and our grandchildren. And I'm very conscious that it was my grandmother, a young woman who left India with 3 children in tow. She'd probably never left a little village called Samrod in Gujarat to head to another continent, another country, in a time where there was no digital access, when you had to get onto a ship, not knowing where you were going, not knowing if you would ever return. And I want to honor my ancestors for what they did to enable me to be in this room today. Can we do a wave for the amazing Safetipin team? The GIZ team. Can we have you over here? On the stage, on the stage. And can we have all of you just come closer? Let's mind the gap. Let's close the gaps and let's just come closer to each other. Can we all fit on the stage? Why not? Let's get everyone onto the stage. Let's get everyone. There should be no one left in a seat. No one left behind. No one missing the bus. No one missing the train. There's space for everyone.
चलेंगे हाथों में हाथ हम चलेंगे साथ साथ एक दिन तो मन में है विश्वास पूरा है विश्वास हम होंगे कामयाब एक दिन नहीं डर किसी का आज नहीं डर किसी का आज नहीं डर किसी का आज के दिन ओ मन में है विश्वास पूरा है विश्वास हम होंगे कामयाब एक दिन जिंदाबाद 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 हुर्रे हुर्रे हुर्रे
सब आ रहे हैं फोटो में हाँ ठीक है everyone look forward
wow